I knew I was, I mean, did I know? Do you remember me saying that word to you? I
Now,
didn't use.
the story of Robin and Kody was never simply about love, or even about faith. It was about control, image, and the dangerous illusion of power within a collapsing family system. Robin once appeared to be the winner, the final wife standing in a game of endurance. She got what she wanted, Kody all to herself. But the irony is sharp. The prize she fought for has turned out to be a burden, because without rivals, without the constant competition of other wives, there is no validation. Her performance as the best wife, the fixer, the long-suffering favorite, loses all meaning when there's no one left to outshine. That's why, even as the sole partner, Robin looks more miserable than ever. She has become trapped defending a trophy that no one else wants, and the realization cuts deep. The tears, the exaggerated sobbing, the endless victim routine. They once manipulated sympathy, but now they expose her bitterness. She did not win happiness. She won isolation, and she knows it. Meanwhile, the fate of Meri tells a different, but equally tragic tale. Meri was once central to the family, a strong voice, opinionated, unwilling to disappear into the background. That strength should have been respected, but in a system built on passive-aggressive silence and control, it was treated as a threat. She was slowly exiled, not officially, not in words, but emotionally erased. Kody himself symbolically ended their marriage when he melted down the wedding ring she had given him, as if casting her out like unwanted metal. Yet even then, Meri clung to hope. She reached out on anniversaries, tried to schedule dinners, held on to loyalty because she believed suffering was the price of commitment. And Kody weaponized that loyalty, keeping her close enough not to leave, but far enough never to matter. His strategy was simple: breadcrumb her with just enough words to stop her from walking away, while making it clear in private that the marriage was dead. Robin played her role in this too. When Meri dreamed of finishing her college degree, of stepping into independence, Robin didn't celebrate her. She panicked. What if Meri built a life outside the family? What if she didn't come back to Sister Wives Closet, the business that Robin wanted her tied to? Robin's confessional revealed the truth. It was never about supporting Meri's growth. It was about controlling her, making sure her time and energy fed Robin's comfort. Even Kody admitted he sided with Robin's baby plans over Meri's education. That was the pattern. Meri's independence was treated as betrayal, her loyalty exploited until it broke her spirit. The timeline of this downfall stretches back years. In the Las Vegas era, Meri confessed how another wife accused her of being abusive simply because she was direct and particular. That label stuck, not because it was true, but because it was convenient. In a family that demanded conformity, any woman who spoke too strongly could be branded as abusive or selfish. Christine, too, once told Meri she didn't need friends outside the family, that her only real support would come from her sister wives. But when the cracks widened, that so-called sisterhood dissolved, leaving Meri isolated, her friendships mocked as escape plans. Even Janelle at one point suggested that Meri's bed and breakfast dream might become a way out, and warned that it shouldn't be allowed. What was painted as concern was actually surveillance, a constant effort to stop her from claiming independence. And yet, Meri did not give up. She showed up at family weddings. She maintained bonds with some of the children. She received public love from certain adult kids who defended her. She was not a pariah, only inconvenient. Inconvenient because she refused to fade quietly into the shadows. Inconvenient because she kept reminding everyone of what they had promised and failed to deliver. Inconvenient because she did not match the fantasy of harmony that Kody and Robin desperately wanted to sell. And in this system, inconvenient women get erased. As for Robin, her entire arc is built on manipulation. From the earliest days, she leaned into weepy confessions, carefully scripted self-sacrifice, and exaggerated victimhood. She was not chasing plural marriage out of conviction. She was chasing the drama of plural marriage. the competition, the dysfunction, the friction. That was the fuel for her performance as the perfect wife. When Christine left, when Janelle chose independence, when Meri became emotionally exiled, the performance collapsed. With no one left to compare herself against, Robyn's identity evaporated. She was left with Kody, expensive doll therapy sessions, and a suffocating silence where chaos used to be. And that silence is unbearable. Because Robyn never wanted peace. She wanted to be the martyr who endured everyone else's chaos, the favorite wife rising above the storm. Without rivals, she has no stage. Without rivals, there is no role to play. Kody, of course, has been the master manipulator all along. He set the rules. He enforced loyalty while offering conditional love. He gaslit his wives into believing their unhappiness was their fault, not the fault of the broken system he orchestrated. He cast himself as the spiritual leader, the victim of disobedience, the man betrayed by the very family he abandoned. His treatment of his children was no better. He openly dismissed their feelings, flipping between favoritism and disdain depending on the day. His authority was based not on respect, but on control. The collapse of his relationship with Meri shows this clearly. After the catfish scandal, she thought there was still hope, that they could reconcile. Kody played along, not to heal, but to preserve the image that Robyn valued, the image of a functioning plural marriage. In private, he told Meri there was no chance, no future, no relationship. In public, he offered half-truths and staged conversations to keep the illusion alive. When Meri tried to bring up things he had said off camera, he immediately shut her down. Accountability was his greatest fear, and control was his greatest weapon. He would rather rewrite history than face the truth. Robyn supported this rewriting. She needed Meri around for legitimacy, for financial contributions, for the image of unity. She told Kody she couldn't have another baby unless Meri stepped in to help. She positioned Meri not as an equal wife, but as unpaid labor, a babysitter to cover her own responsibilities. Kody agreed because Robyn's comfort came first. Meri's dreams, her independence, her dignity, they were always secondary. And through all of this, the show continued. The TLC cameras rolled, capturing Robyn's tears, Kody's rants, and the slow-motion unraveling of a family system that was built on inequality from the start. The chaos was the draw. The dysfunction was the spectacle. And as long as Christine and Janelle were there, as long as Meri held on, the chaos sparkled. But now it is just Robyn and Kody, a broken marriage held together by nothing but habit and a crumbling image. Without rivals, without conflict, without the illusion of sisterhood, the show has lost its core. Robyn thought she won, but the victory is hollow. She is left defending a husband no one else wants, stuck in a role that no longer exists, clinging to a lifestyle that has already collapsed. Meri thought loyalty would save her. Instead, it imprisoned her in a marriage that no longer existed, where abandonment was repackaged as her own failure. Kody thought he could control the narrative forever, but the cracks are visible. The hypocrisy is undeniable. The manipulation, the favoritism, the gaslighting, it's all on display. This is not just a story of a family falling apart. It is a cautionary tale about what happens when loyalty is exploited, when independence is punished, when women are pitted against each other for the approval of a man who was never worthy of their devotion. It is about the cost of illusions, the danger of control, and the bitter truth that sometimes winning means losing everything. And so the timeline keeps pushing forward, from the early days of shared kitchens and passive-aggressive silence, to the Vegas years of cul-de-sac drama, to the Flagstaff collapse of unity. Every stage has revealed the same pattern: control disguised as faith, suffering disguised as virtue, and betrayal disguised as leadership. What remains now is not a family, not a system, but the wreckage of a performance that outlived its script. Robin cries not because the dream is gone, but because her starring role has ended. Meri holds on not because she is blind, but because the cost of letting go was made too high. And Kody keeps talking, delivering endless lectures, because silence would expose the truth. There is nothing left to lead. The show may limp along for another season, maybe two, but the chaos has already burned out, and what's left is just emptiness. The wives who carried the family have walked away. The man who claimed to be their leader is reduced to anger and denial, and the woman who thought she won now sits alone, miserable in her victory. The story isn't over, but the ending has already written itself. The dream of plural marriage was sold as a promise of joy, unity, and divine fulfillment, but for Christine and Janelle, the reality was anything but. From the very beginning, they were told that polygamy would bring them closer to God, would provide a built-in support system, and would create a family where sisterhood thrived. But when the layers are peeled back, what emerges is not harmony, but exhaustion, exploitation, and a carefully manufactured illusion. Christine, the ever-smiling homemaker, was tasked with carrying the emotional and practical weight of raising children while maintaining a picture-perfect facade. Janelle, pragmatic and hardworking, was the financial backbone of the family, silently underwriting Kody's impulsive spending and endless vanity projects. And Kody himself, the supposed leader, was revealed to be a man who manipulated with emotions, enforced loyalty through fear of abandonment, and offered conditional love while chasing his own ego. The cracks that formed over years of strain have now widened into a full collapse, leaving nothing but bitterness and regret where faith and family once claimed to exist. Christine's journey captures the deep contradictions at the heart of this lifestyle. She was raised to believe that polygamy was sacred, that being one of many wives was a path to eternal happiness. But the cost of that belief was staggering. In practice, she became less of a wife and more of a caretaker, not just for her own children, but for the household itself. Meals had to be perfect, homes spotless, and appearances carefully maintained for the nights when Kody would grace her home with his presence. Yet behind the curtain of religious conviction and family loyalty, the truth was harsher. Her older daughters became the true backbone of the household. Aspen, McCulty, and later Gwen and Isabel carried the responsibilities their father refused to shoulder. They became the second mothers, the unpaid labor force ensuring that their younger siblings had the care Christine could no longer manage alone. When Aspen and McCulty moved out, Christine's mother had to step in, exposing the myth of the sister wives support system as a hollow performance. If the lifestyle worked the way it was advertised, Christine would not have needed emergency help the moment her older daughters left. The supposed harmony was never there. It was the children who held the fragile system together. For Christine, the breaking point came gradually, not in a single moment. It was death by 1,000 cuts. The neglect of her needs, the conditional scraps of affection, the way Kody treated her presence as a burden instead of a blessing. She internalized the belief that her happiness didn't matter, that her role was to serve, to endure, to sacrifice. And when she finally dared to question it, when she dared to walk away, it wasn't just leaving a marriage, it was unraveling her entire identity. She had built her life on the promise that polygamy was divine. Walking away meant admitting that she had been sold a lie. That takes a courage most people will never understand. Janelle's path was different, but equally telling. While Christine carried the childcare empire, Janelle carried the finances. She was the one working, the one with the steady income, the one keeping the family afloat while Kody indulged in his expensive hobbies and constantly shifting dreams of new houses, new land, new projects. Her practicality was the glue, but it came at a cost. Kody often dismissed her sacrifices, treated her contributions as expected, while offering little in return except criticism or empty lectures on loyalty. Janelle saw the imbalance long before others did. She wasn't as emotionally attached to Kody as Christine or Meri had been, but she was loyal to the idea of family. That loyalty chained her to a man who repaid her devotion with control and condescension. The irony of Janelle's role is stark. In a system where wives were measured by how many children they bore, she was devalued despite being the one who ensured survival. The man who should have respected her contributions instead undermined them, playing favorites when it suited him, withdrawing affection when it didn't. And in the end, even Janelle reached her breaking point. Independence became more attractive than submission. Respect became more valuable than endurance. She chose herself, not because she stopped believing in family, but because she realized the family she was sacrificing for no longer existed. At the center of both Christine and Janelle's stories is Kody, the man whose behavior shaped the collapse. His leadership was always built on manipulation. He presented himself as the spiritual head, the moral guide, the man chosen by God to lead his family. But his actions told a different story. He gave love with footnotes, affection with conditions. He turned loyalty into a weapon, making his wives believe that leaving would mean eternal failure, while staying meant constant neglect. He gaslit them, reframing their pain as disobedience, their longing for respect as betrayal, their independence as selfishness. He cast himself as the victim, claiming to be abandoned, while he was the one doing the abandoning. Even his relationship with his children showed the same pattern, favoring some, dismissing others, offering affection when it served him, withdrawing it when it didn't. His role as a father was as conditional as his role as a husband. One of the most revealing cracks in Kody's image came in his relationship with the church. For years, he framed his departure as a noble act, a principled decision to stand on his own terms, but whispers suggested a different truth, that the church no longer wanted him, that his disastrous public performance of plural marriage had become too damaging. He went on national television and failed so spectacularly that he became a cautionary tale. That alone could have pressured leaders to distance themselves. And yet, in his telling, he was the hero, the man too independent, too strong, to bow to authority. In reality, it was damage control. He lost the legitimacy of faith, but spun it as defiance. His hair, his vanity, his endless excuses, all became symbols of a man rewriting history to protect his ego. And always, standing behind him, was Robin. Robin was the enabler, the emotional manipulator who used tears like weapons and turned her victimhood into leverage. She supported Kody's dismissal of the other wives' dreams, framing their independence as threats to her own stability. When Meri wanted to go back to college, Robin panicked, worried that it would pull her away from sister wives' closet. When Christine dared to voice unhappiness, Robin doubled down, crying to the cameras about betrayal while enjoying the favoritism that Kody showered on her. Her role was never about unity, it was about control. She needed the dysfunction, the competition, the drama, because her entire identity was built on being the wife who rose above the chaos. Without rivals, without other women to compete against, her performance collapses. She got what she wanted, Kody all to herself, and it turned out to be the most miserable outcome of all. And this brings us to the future of the show. For over a decade, sister wives thrived on chaos, the drama, the tears, the tension. It was the spectacle that kept viewers coming back. Christine's outbursts, Janelle's quiet strength, Meri's loyalty, and Kody's arrogance created a combustible mix that made for addictive television. But now, the fire is gone. With Christine and Janelle gone, with Meri emotionally exiled, the only story left is Robin's tears and Kody's endless lectures. Viewers aren't fooled. They see the emptiness. They see that the so-called family has crumbled not just because of relationships, but because of power, competition, and control. The illusion has been shattered, and what's left is hollow. Maybe the show can limp along for another season, maybe two, but the magic is gone. The dysfunction was always the sparkle, and without it, there is nothing left to watch. What remains is not a family, not a faith, but a monument to hypocrisy, manipulation, and betrayal. Robin cries because her starring role has no stage. Kody rants because silence would reveal his failure. And the women who carried the burden, Christine, Janelle, even Meri, walk away with the scars of loyalty turned into chains. The audience is left to reflect on the bitter truth. Polygamy did not fail because of disobedience. It failed because it was never built on equality. It was built on control, and control always collapses. And so the timeline stretches from the early days of hopeful promises to the current emptiness of a family in ruins. Christine's strength exposed the lies. Janelle's independence revealed the imbalance. Meri's loyalty showed the cruelty of exploitation. Together, their stories prove that the system was never sustainable. Kody's leadership was never leadership, it was theater. Robin's tears were never genuine, they were strategy. And the entire narrative was never about love, it was about power. What happens next is almost irrelevant. The ending has already written itself. Even if the cameras keep rolling, the illusion is dead, and all that remains is the wreckage of a dream that was always a lie. Thanks for watching.